Hello everyone, welcome back to the Grizzly Peaks National Park build series, a collaborative project between myself, Solaris, and the incredibly talented, always, Booter. Today we're going to do some mountainous terraforming and landscaping. Now, as many people in the Planet Coaster gaming community kind of has already pointed out through multiple videos and just forums and blogs, the terrain tool is not the easiest or most maneuverable tool in this game. That goes without saying. I would actually probably put it second to worst tool behind the path builder, but more of that later. So with mountain work, my best piece of advice would be to raise up the desired area using the landscape functionality. Do this kind of with a staired effect. Make sure that your outer edges are lower and wider, and as you work your way up the mountain, reduce the size of your landscaping tool. You're going to actually take the flatten to foundation tool after you raise that area up, similar to what you're seeing now, and make sure that flatten to foundation tool is at its maximum, and just click one time on the way up and down the mountain. This will create a very sharp and tiered effect to the mountain, and as odd as it looks, it's exactly what we want because it will actually allow the next step to be a little bit easier. So after you've done that, you're going to see that I am now using the chisel tool and maximize this as well, maximum size, maximum intensity, and you're going to locate a slanted angle that you want in the appropriate direction of where you're wanting your mountain slope, and you're going to gently glide that chisel tool from the top of the mountain down to the base. It's going to sort of sink the ground around as you see, but for me, at least with this particular scenario, I actually think it benefits what I'm trying to accomplish here, just to give you that more rugged, natural landscaping look. I know sometimes we do see mountains that do actually go completely from a slope to flat at the very base of the mountain, but I wanted to give you more of a mountain that is sitting on more mountains, and mountain that's sitting on a hill and kind of concaving its way down and around with slopes and just a bunch of different ways besides just having flat land. But also you don't want to go overboard with it and create such a huge hole in the ground that it takes away from the look. So you're going to see me kind of smooth out a lot of that deep diving that the chisel tool did at the base of the mountain, and I also actually go up and down that mountain to create more of a dips here and there. So it's going to all help me create that mountainous look when I go to start shading everything in. After you do that whole flatten the foundation tool around the mountain, make sure that you very carefully, and I mean this very heavily, make sure you very carefully use the chisel tool, because once you start going haywire with that, it's very hard to get that mountain appearance back, and it's going to be a very, very challenging feat for you to be able to do, almost so much so that you'll have to restart. So just be wary on that. I like to also, for my mountains, as you're going to see also in the background of the video and next to the mountain that we're currently building, sort of one of the tricks that this game is really actually good at utilizing is, if you're good with it and you know how to manipulate it just right, you can use a thing called forced perspective. And it is a very unique thing, so much so that it kind of tricks our eyes into believing one of the biggest things, that something is an optical illusion to make an object appear further away, closer, taller, smaller. It's a forced perspective, and it just manipulates the human visual perception kind of through the use of how objects are scaled. So with this game, or actually particularly with this landscape, one of the really cool things that we see on most mountain work is the fact that mountains, as you get to the top, tend to have a little bit of snow and ice accumulation. So this kind of where this park, Grizzly Peaks, is going to be taking, is at, like I said, we're inspired a lot by Yellowstone National Park and Jasper National Park in Canada, kind of a combination of the two. It's a little chilly up there. Even at Yellowstone, you're going to be having a lot of ice visuals as you see the top of the mountain. So one of the really cool things that I like to do is just take the ice or snow tool that you have. I think I'm using a combination of it's rock and snow, and very, very lightly, you're going to just spray the tip top of that mountain. And as you work your way, start to go down a lot of those divots, you're going to want to gently, not as heavily, use that ice tool to kind of break away as you're going further down the mountain. Obviously, temperatures are starting to rise back up and you're getting, higher oxygen levels. So you don't necessarily have to just rely on just snow or ice for that look. After you do the ice and snow tool, you want to make sure that, as we all know, mountains or mountainous areas are for the most part covered with, they're made of rock, so you want to be sure that you take that rock tool, and I used a combination of mud, rock, and I think it was the Alpine. I want to say it's the Alpine rock terrain shader, and just kind of go underneath that and blend it in the best you can when it comes to that mountain, because at the end of the day, like I said, underneath that snow and rock, you still have solid rock mountain. You have a rock mountain that we need to see. So I also like to shade all the way down from that top part of the mountain going down into the base of it. Also using the mud tool or a shade of mud to kind of create that look of, okay, we're leaving the rock, now we're going down to the mud, and this is where the grass will meet mud, and we'll be able to, place all these amazing trees that we're now placing. With trees, as I've said in previous videos, it is extremely, extremely difficult to create an alpine forest look, especially when you really only have 4 types of trees to really work with. So it requires a lot of elevating up and down with trees, a lot of sizing trees, and a lot of rotating trees just to kind of give you a more varied look there. As you see, what I try to do, I don't want to tackle on the full map at one time. That's overkill. So for just to make it a little bit easier for myself and just to kind of give me a little bit more control of specifics of certain areas, I like to take it one area at a time and not work so much on a grand scale with so many different trees and areas and land going up and down, and valleys and low points and mud areas. There's so many different things that you have to look at when it comes to making a realistic looking forest. Biggest thing is going to also look at how you're placing trees in comparison to the mountain. To help with that forest perspective look, as you can see here, I'm actually wanting to lower trees as we get closer to the mountain to make it seem that from the road or the path that our guests are only going to be allowed on, they look so far away. They look so, even though we know up close we see how big those trees can get, that's why we raise the trees as we get closer to the guest view, and we lower the trees deeper into the ground and get smaller as we get further away. It all helps with that forest perspective look to make that mountain seem much bigger than it really, really is. One of the cool things that I also like to do after I place, a decent amount of these trees is to look at some of the blank spots. Now, I could go and make this entire area just covered in trees, but that's just not how forests are. There are some open spots in forest. There are some, as we're going up mountains, you're looking at it. It's not all just complete 100% trees. There are some dead patches, as we call it. And it's going to basically consist of just a couple of rocks and just some mud and occasional bushes here and there, but no dramatic, tree heights added to this particular area. So that's actually what I'm working on now, is taking a bunch of alpine rocks, rotating them around, sinking them into the ground. So we're not getting the massive, huge boulders that those rocks are totally scaled as, but we're getting a more smaller look to it that just is going to help with this valley area. And also, I guess I can kind of reveal this later on down the road. We are thinking about adding in kind of like a trail to this, so it's not going to just there's a method to our madness here. I guess you can say it's not completely just all about creating the huge hole in the forest, but there's a method to our madness, so we are going to eventually create a trail, but we'll get on that to a different video. What I like to do the most, and one of the weird things that I've really taken a keen to, is just making sure that everything blends together. That includes shading properly, making sure your rocks are all matching, with the surrounding area and the type of shader you're using. Obviously, those alpine rocks are going to look really weird setting along the mud shade. So you need to kind of create a more of a rocky gravel area, you know, if that makes any sense. And that's really going to help kind of make that area just pop that much more. So once you get kind of those valleys, or at least one valley done, you'll start to see it's just a repeat process. And then we move to the next one, get a little bit closer to the road. Obviously, these trees are going to be a little bit more heightened than what they were further or closer to the mountain, further away from the guest. So as you see, I'm not going as deep with the trees because we want to make sure that from the guest point of view, they get the illusion, well, it's real, that these trees are massive. So our brain tells us, even though they're far away and they look small, they're still massive, even though we sink half of them into the ground. Force perspective. So you definitely want to use that, you know, be very diligent about how you place trees and how you're doing the landscaping and the shading work, because all of it will help you in terms of just getting that look that these mountains in this area is a much grander and larger than it really looks. I also have taken a nice keen interest in these ponderosa pine trees. They are great great fillers for kind of like that groundwork in the forest. And I think that because they are so heavily, you know, they have such heavy leaves on them at the top, it's a great, almost like a bush, but still yet a small tree. They work out really great. So definitely use those if you are stuck making, in an alpine sense, just a bunch of alpine trees, the black spruce trees, the black fir trees, the Douglas fir trees, all that you can kind of break up by including those ponderosa pines, because it really does give you a difference, but not so much that it really takes you so far out of the natural, you know, region that you would find these trees in, which in this case, it is just an alpine region. Take some more of those rocks, go around again some of those divots in the ground to where the ground is, you know, sloped, angled up, or it's heading towards, you know, the road, the guest, because again, like I said, later on down the road, those will all be part of the trail that Booter and myself are going to add in. But for right now, like I said, we just want to make it kind of have this look of being just, you know, it's still part of the forest here, so it's not going to be completely out of place. I am kind of closing this one off just a little bit more though, and there is a reason why, and it's because that slope that you see is very close, or getting closer to the guest view. So in order for us to kind of keep, again, with that forest perspective, we're going to need to have a little bit more rocks there, and I don't want as much empty space there. You want to keep it as if it looks like there's a lot of space up close, but as you get closer to that particular area, you'll see it's not. It's just part of how, you know, the little small slither of space that we have to put these rocks in. And that also will apply for when a guest is walking through the forest and get to the back part. They'll look at it and say, that's another little small slither of area. It's not as big as we think it is. And again, it just helps with the forest perspective point of view. You also do not have to be this asinine or particular about any, you know, terraforming or landscaping, foliage placing, rock placing that you are wanting to achieve with your park. Again, we are going more so in the fact that this is just a national park, so it's not going to incorporate a bunch of, you know, different roller coaster hills or, you know, path work that's going to be over the top excessive. It's just to give you a light inside guide into aesthetically what this game is truly capable of, somewhat on par with Planet Zoo and how it kind of looks. I also know that Planet Zoo was built on a better engine as well and has a plethora of different types of foliage placement, rock placement. The shaders are different, lighting is different, even the graphics are better. So I just wanted to kind of show off that Planet Coaster does have some very, very, very beautiful, you know, aesthetics to it as well, if done in a particular way. It doesn't always have to be about the big roller coasters that we see, the giga coasters, the Ferris wheels, and all the other stuff. It's just basically just to show you the beauty of this. In the future, though, Booter and I do have some plans that will incorporate more rides later on, but we will leave that for a different topic as well, or for a different day, a different video, I should say, not for right now. But anyways, once you start to get a lot of that done, it's just a matter of shading everything in just to give it that more realistic look. You know, kind of in closing with this video, placing foliage and terraforming the land are some of the most underutilized components of the game. Hopefully this video will help you get an idea of some sort of how to help you create those mountainscapes and alpine forest placement. In our next video, we will work on the interior of the visitor center that the incredible Booter has already created. He's done the exterior shell, and I'm just going to fill in the inside of it with just, simple customer service, visitor center, furniture, and stuff from the amazing Theme Makers Toolkit workshop. So if you have any questions or comments about this video, or need help with anything in terms of landscaping or terraforming, please by all means feel free to comment below on the video, and we will actually see you all next week with again the interior of the visitor center and just reviewing the amazing stuff that Booter has already done for Grizzly Peaks National Park. And I guess with that being said, from here on out, Solaris out.